All right, let's get into it. We are going to talk about a name you've probably never heard. And that's kind of crazy, because this guy's work from almost 200 years ago, it's the reason your lights are on right now, the reason you can charge your phone. We're talking about the unsung hero who basically electrified our entire world.
Picture this. It's May 24th, 1844. Samuel F.B. Morse, who's more of an artist than an inventor at this point, taps out this really dramatic message on a brand new gadget. The signal zips 44 miles from Washington, D.C., all the way to Baltimore. And just like that, with those 4 simple words, the electric telegraph arrives and changes, well, everything.
So Morse becomes a household name, right? He gets all the credit, the patents, the money, the fame. But here's the thing. The story is nowhere near that simple. The actual core technology that made that famous message even possible, it wasn't his. Not at all. It was actually invented years before by somebody else.
And that somebody else was a man named Joseph Henry, an American scientist with a story that is, honestly, one of the most incredible and overlooked in the entire history of invention. This is the guy who didn't just lay the groundwork for the telegraph, he laid the groundwork for our entire electric age.
You know, what's so wild is how similar his story is to the much more famous Michael Faraday. I mean, look at this. Both were born poor. Both had very little formal schooling. Both got sent off to be apprentices as teenagers. But here's the difference. Faraday ended up as a bookbinder, surrounded by knowledge. Henry? He was apprenticed to a watchmaker. You'd think that would be the end of any scientific dreams, right?
Well, fate had other plans. And it all started with a rabbit. Seriously. The story goes that when he was 16, he was chasing a rabbit and it ran under a church. So Henry goes inside to find it, and there he stumbles upon a bookshelf. He just randomly picks up a book about science, and that was it. That one chance discovery completely changed his life. He went back to school and decided to dedicate his entire life to science. And boy, did that dedication pay off. He wasn't just going to learn science, he was about to build the future. And he started with something that back then most people just thought was a neat little toy.
So, back in 1825, this guy William Sturgeon invents the first electromagnet. It was cool, but kind of weak, pretty useless really. But Henry saw the potential, and he made this one simple, brilliant change. He took copper wire and carefully insulated it, wrapping it in silk. Now, why does that matter? Because it meant he could wrap the wire in coil after coil after coil, literally thousands of turns, without it short-circuiting. It seems so obvious to us now, but it was a total game changer.
So just how much of a game changer are we talking about? Well, in 1831, he's at Princeton. He hooks up one of his new electromagnets to a tiny battery, and it lifts 750 pounds. Let that sink in, 750 pounds. This little scientific toy was now an absolute beast. And he was just getting started. That same year, he goes over to Yale, builds an even bigger one, and it lifts over a ton. We're talking more than 2,000 pounds. This wasn't just making something better. This was a complete revolution in how we could use electricity.
Okay, so he's got all this power, but there's a huge problem: distance. Electrical signals get weaker and weaker the farther they travel down a wire. A signal from DC would be nothing but a faint whisper by the time it got to Baltimore. Henry's solution to this? Pure genius. It's called the relay. Instead of trying to send the powerful message all that way, he sent a weak signal. And that weak signal's only job was to activate a tiny electromagnet, which then flipped a switch. That switch connected a brand new, fully powered battery to the line, sending the signal on its way again. It's like a bucket brigade for electricity. And it was the absolute key to making long-distance communication possible.
And you'd think that would be enough for one person, right? Nope. Around the exact same time, Henry also invents the very first practical electric motor. You know how Faraday was busy figuring out how to turn motion into electricity? Well, Henry cracked the code on the reverse. He figured out how to use electricity to create motion. Literally every single electric motor that spins today, yeah, it's a direct descendant of Henry's invention.
So this brings us to the big question, the paradox of it all. If this guy invented the powerful electromagnet, the relay that made the telegraph work, and the electric motor, why isn't his name as famous as Morse or Edison or Bell? Why is he just a footnote? Well, the answer isn't about science, it's about his personal philosophy. And the reason is, honestly, kind of stunning. Joseph Henry never patented a single one of his inventions. Not one. He had this deep belief that scientific knowledge wasn't something you should own. He thought it belonged to all of humanity, a gift to be shared freely, so that other people could take his ideas and build something even greater.
And boy, did they ever build on his ideas. Just look at the timeline. By 1831, Henry already had a working telegraph that he demonstrated over a mile of wire. It took another 13 years before Samuel Morse had his famous public demonstration, and he did it using Henry's exact principles for the electromagnet and the relay. Of course, huge legal battles followed, but in the end, the court sided with Morse. Why? Because Morse patented the application, the final product. Henry, the man who discovered the fundamental science, was left with nothing but a historical footnote.
And it wasn't just Morse. The same thing basically happened with the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell's incredible invention, it absolutely depended on the same principles of electromagnetism that Henry had figured out and published for free decades before.
But you know, Henry's story isn't really about bitterness or what he lost. It's about what he chose to do instead. He may have lost the race for patents and fame, but he poured the rest of his energy into building the entire foundation of American science.
I mean, look at this. He became the very first secretary of the Smithsonian Institution and turned it into a world-class center for scientific research. And, in a bit of beautiful irony, he used the telegraph, the invention he made possible, to create the country's first national weather reporting system. That system eventually became the U.S. Weather Bureau. During the Civil War, he was the guy leading the nation's scientific mobilization. His whole life became about public service.
It is impact today? Oh, it's literally everywhere you look. It's been said that Faraday gave us cheap electricity, but it was Joseph Henry who showed us what to do with it. Just think about your house right now. The motor in your fridge, that's Henry. Your washing machine, your blender, that power drill in the garage, all of them are running because of the principles he discovered. His inventions are the quiet, hidden engines that power our modern lives.
So while he never really got the public fame he deserved during his lifetime, the scientific community knew. They absolutely knew his value. And in 1893, they gave him the ultimate tribute. They named the official SI unit for electrical inductance the Henry. So even today, his name is spoken in every physics lab and engineering class across the globe. That's a legacy.
And all this leaves us with one last big question to think about. Joseph Henry deliberately chose sharing knowledge over making a profit. He chose collaboration over personal credit. In our world today, a world that is so completely driven by patents, by intellectual property, by who gets the credit, his story really makes you stop and ask, what's the real point of invention? Is it for individual gain, or is it for the good of everyone?